Coast, so I have a lot of friends here. Kind of like a family gathering. My buddy just texted me. And, there it is. Yes, you're here. I want to thank GC, first of all, for letting me come into town and make a bunch of noise and, on a quiet, what would probably not have been a quiet afternoon anyway. This is nothing new for them. Noise on a Saturday afternoon. DB Mark, I don't think there's anybody here from DB Mark, but thank you, DB Mark, wherever you guys are. They let me work on an amplifier, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get going. Whenever I do these events, it's really interesting for me because, you know, I play guitar, and from the time I first got my deal and got some recognition, there's always been a side of me that's been a little bit surprised and confused as to what it is that people seem to find interesting. So I just kind of, you know, I hold the pick in this hand, and then generally this hand goes over here, and but for whatever reason, wonderful people like you show up to and are curious about what I have to say and what I'm doing. So most of all, thank you all so much for showing up. I really appreciate that. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
I have a new amp out, and I'm trying to, there's a specific people I'm looking for that said they were going to show up. They're friends of mine. I don't see them. So, you're not here? The heck with you. Be that way. So I will be talking about the amp a little bit. I just got off a 3.5 week tour in Europe. So it's been a little crazy, and it's still been going. I've been doing the GC thing for about a week. This is the second to the last event, and this has really been cool because the staff here is awesome. Chris, and I think there was Ernest, and then Ed, and there's other guys. Everybody has been on there. But you guys are okay, right? So look for that. So among many things that I've had that I've been blessed with along the way with my career, one of the things that's happened recently is I've been able to work with a company on an amplifier that fits my kind of weird, unusual, and often wrong style playing. And we'll be sharing the video for those of you with the YouTube cameras. Audio line 3. That'll be the caption right now. So yeah, it was really cool. About 2 years ago, a company more known as Mark Bass, who had a lot of success as Mark Bass, got into the division of guitar with DB Mark, and they approached me, they contacted me and wanted to know if I'd be interested in playing any of their amps. They sent me some amps, and it was cool. I thought the amps were nice. I thought they sounded good, but they weren't really what I like. They were just different. They just responded and behaved differently. We're going to be jamming later on as well. I'm going to be playing in time to him, if all goes well. So I sort of said thanks and no thanks, and then we sent the amps back, and they approached me again and said, what is it that you don't like? Or what is it that you what is it that you would like? And I said, well, you know, I'd like it to sound the way I need it to sound for my thing. So they said, all right, cool, so how do you want to do this? And I suggested that we just kind of put a series of you know, trips together where I go to Italy, which is where the company is located, in Pescara, Italy, on the Adriatic Sea, in a small town, cobblestone, really beautiful, awesome. And that's what we did. So it was really fun to work on this amp because it's first of all, it's an Italian culture, so a lot of it is just eating and drinking wine, and then going, you know, we should probably do something with this amp. And a lot of it's that. So that was fun, and so there was like, I think 4 or 5 trips that were made where we just try to hone in on it, and get closer and closer, and eventually we came up with something that's kind of working for me. So I'm here to talk about it, and it's very, very simple. So I'm going to start by just explaining that the amp is a no-frills amp, and that was the premise. A lot of newer amps that are out today have a lot of bells and whistles, a lot of push-button pulls, and, you know, boost this, and, you know, 4 effects loops. I wanted something that was very simple because I'm just a guitar player, right? I don't want to be thinking a whole lot. So basically I said, you know, I just want it to turn on and basically have the contour of the tone and the feel that I want. 2 channels is plenty for me, and just keep it simple, and that's what it is. So we ended up with something that's basically bass, mid, treble, presence, effects loop, gain, master volume. That's it. Thank you very much. Good night, you guys. Yeah, that was it. So the clean channel, as you can hear, this is the loudest clean channel I've ever. I'm not sure how this happened. I don't remember saying that I wanted that, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's the loudest clean channel I think I've ever experienced. With an amazing amount of attack. So I'm actually going to play with it a little bit. The gain, there is a gain, so there's a front end on this, but the gain is pretty much straight up. And if I turn it all the way up, it's got a little more dirt, a little more volume, but even then, it's still nice for the clean stuff that I've done on albums, and this clean stuff that I tend to like is never totally clean. I like it to be a little bit dirty, even if I'm doing stuff that should be totally clean. Anything that's going to be. So I like a little bit of dirt on it. You can probably. It's more of a feel than. It's more of a feel than it is anything else. But it's a very clean. It's a very clean. And what we ended up doing, I tend to be a last-minute guy. Most of the biggest decisions I make are in the 11th hour. So we were pretty much, for the output stage, everything was pretty much 6L6s. All the time we were working on this. And 6L6s tend to have a little bit more headroom. They don't compress quite as easy as EL34s, which I liked until literally about an hour before the very last time I was there, and I said, you know, they have to take me to the airport to Rome. Rome is about a 2-hour drive from Pescara. And they're like, okay, well, you got to get in the car. So, and I said, all right, well, thank you very much. I think we got the amp. Real quick, can I hear the EL34s one more time? Just one more time. So we put the EL34s in, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want. So EL34s are a little bit, they compress a little bit easier, they're a little bit fuzzier. There's a warmer thing about them. Maybe you sacrifice just a little bit of clarity, but we're talking about nuance, not enough to be a deal breaker for most people, unless you're, you know, Eric Johnson. But for me, it was just kind of a feel. So the clean channel is nice. One of the things that I do a lot is, and I'll talk more about this later, but a lot of what I tend to do on the guitar is really the result of not being able to do things very well. So some of the most unique things that I've done, or some of the things that I've become sort of known for, are often the result of not being able to do things conventionally very well. So it's like I end up trying to find an alternative way to do it, and everybody thinks, man, you were really clever. It's not that I was clever, I was resourceful in trying to hide the fact that I suck at something. And one of those things is sort of simulating finger picking, and there was a section on Introspection album. I did a song for an amazing guitarist by the name of Jason Becker. You guys ever hear of him?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's crazy. And he's a really good friend of mine, and when he got sick, I wrote a song called Desiderata. And there's a section in there where a lot of people were sort of like, how did you learn flamenco? You know, because they're hearing like high notes and low notes happening at the same time, and stuff that sounds way more complicated than it really was. But for this amp, a lot of times, like because I'm traveling so much, you're at the mercy of backline that's provided for you in some country that's 20 miles from Siberia, you know, and that some mom and pop music store that sells tambourines and Mel Bay books. And then we've got amps too, and it's like, you know, Frank's amps. And so sometimes you're at the mercy of stuff like that. And when I'm playing stuff like this, or I did a piece on an album called Extraction with Dennis Chambers, Victor Wooten. If you don't have the album, it's for sale right here. And if you're a guitar player and you don't have the album, you're wrong. You're incorrect.
Yeah.
So, but on that album, I did a thing on acoustic guitar again, very similar. So when I try to do this live, a lot of times I'm stuck because I'm playing all hammer-ons, pretty much all hammer-ons, with the exception of this sort of continuous pedal tone thing. Thank you very much for that. Kinds of things, when I'm playing that kind of stuff, a lot of times I notice that the low notes on a clean channel are pounding out so loud that I literally have to focus on not hammering them as loud and then hammering high notes louder. And you know, the piece is already a little bit weird to play, so when I have this extra thing to think about, it just, you know, it cuts into the creative ability, it cuts into the inspiration. So a lot of times I get on stage and I'm like, oh, and now, you know, I already started, I have to continue, but man, I really wish I could turn around and adjust my hand. So it's really nice, this clean channel is very balanced. It's a very easy, when I'm doing this kind of thing. My fake finger picking thing. This was really easy for that. So I really like it for that kind of thing. It's also very cool for, the clean is clean enough to handle, yikes, to take pedals pretty nicely. So for a different kind of distortion, it's a nice, you know, it's a nice alternative. Because it's so clean, you can use a lot of pedals in front of it easily. So again, there isn't much to talk about. The effects loop's very clean, and the main thing is that it's the attack on the front end that I really like. I do a thing whenever I plug into any brand new tube amp, I do what I call the basketball test, and that is if it's actually easier with the gain stage. Let me. So I want it to sound like 6 basketballs on a hardwood floor. You know, it's got to have that bouncy, boing kind of front end, the immediacy of the attack. And so we spent a lot of time really making sure that that was the case. At first, we had the amp sounding cool, but it didn't feel great. It always felt like the note wasn't keeping up with me, or it felt sluggish. So that was a big part of what we did. And again, the gain stage is not, there's not much to say because we kept it simple. So. Very straight ahead. It's not going to be a super scooped, you know, rectifier-y sound. It's just a really patterned after the sort of the British contour of, you know, a lot of immediacy up front and just a nice sustain that opens up, you know, hit the output stage. The amps that I tend to like are the amps that, you know, when you play, particularly when you turn the amp up loud, there's sort of a voltage surge from the power transformer, and at the same time the output tubes are being driven. So there's this natural sort of compression that takes place. And for me, I don't really pick that much anymore, so if I'm doing stuff like, I really want to hear the, on the front end of those notes. So the amp is really designed for guitarists like me who don't feel like practicing and working real hard. That's the theme here. But it ended up coming out cool. It's a really light amp. One of the things that DB Mark and Mark Bass does really, really well is they design equipment that's really easy to carry around. So unlike a lot of tube amps that are massively heavy, their stuff is really light. Even their cabinets are light. They have some new kind of thing they do with their speakers. So it's funny, at rehearsals, I'll show up in my SUV, I grab my 412 cabinet, and it's like really light. Everyone's looking at me like, man, that guy must be Superman. Yeah, give me 2 of them. So it's kind of fun. But honestly, probably the best way to demo this thing in the context of music is to play it in the context of music. So I'm going to do that. Do you guys, anybody here have an album called Soundproof?
Yes.
See, I love East Coast. East Coast is, I know, right? When I'm in like Krakow, Poland, it's like, 4 is like 2 guys in the back. Yeah, I have Soundproof. Downloaded it off of some bootleg site on the internet. But you guys downloaded off real sites, so that's cool. All right, so here we go. This is a song called Side Note, and you'll get a chance to hear the amp. especially in New York, where there's just amazing musicians all over the place. Sorry. I apologize. This is fun. So you guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Like I said before, I feel very blessed because every time I turn around, I just hear some other musician and see so many great players constantly.